Trump has had a great career in politics, but what would happen if, one day, as if by magic, his presence was no longer in politics? He no longer appeared on television screens, and there were no more news reports about him. What was the reason? What is behind this shocking decision by Trump? The day Donald Trump decided to take a definitive break from politics, the reactions were intense and polarizing. For some, it marked the end of an era that had transformed American politics. For others, it opened a new chapter filled with uncertainty and tensions. His departure left a mixture of emotions: sadness, relief, fear, and many questions. His supporters were left stunned. His critics remained skeptical, and the media speculated tirelessly. But what no one knew was that on that very night, without cameras or bodyguards, Trump disappeared from the world without leaving a trace. People quickly realized that there was no sign of Trump anywhere, which caused great commotion worldwide. On social media, millions of messages began to circulate. Some remembered him as a brave leader who challenged the system, while others celebrated his disappearance. Very quickly, the shockwaves spread across social networks, and different theories began to emerge. In the United States, reactions intensified in the following hours. His most loyal supporters, those who were part of the MAGA, Make America Great Again movement, organized vigils and marches across the country to pay tribute to him. For them, Trump's decision was not voluntary. It was not just a tragedy, but proof that Trump's enemies had succeeded in silencing him. Conspiracy theories quickly surfaced, claiming that he had been eliminated for political reasons. These theories became fuel for protests that escalated into clashes with Trump opponents. In some places, violent episodes unfolded, reflecting that the divisions within the country had not healed with his disappearance, but instead seemed to deepen even further. The Republican Party faced its worst crisis in decades. Since Trump had taken the reins, his figure had dominated the party. With the decision he made, the party was left without a clear leader, and internal conflicts became evident in the following weeks. Some saw this as an opportunity to regain control of the party, while Trump's loyalists, led by figures close to the former president, such as his children and former allies, tried to consolidate their position. The upcoming elections promised to be the most divided and tense in the party's history. The strangest part was that people very close to him commented that Trump had often mentioned the physical and mental exhaustion caused by the political decisions he had to make and the consequences they were having on him. A story seemingly out of nowhere began to spread across many corners of the world, called the Great Farmer of Iowa. In a small and quiet town in Iowa, a robust man with graying hair and a thick beard that conceals his most recognizable features acquires a vast stretch of farmland. He introduces himself to the community as Dave Reynolds, and claims to have spent years on Wall Street before making the decision to leave behind the fast-paced world of finance and immerse himself in the serenity of rural life. No one in town suspects that behind that rustic appearance, the worn-out clothes, and a carefully rehearsed accent, hides none other than the former president of the United States. His past life is behind him, at least that's what he tries to convince himself. Every morning, Dave wakes up before dawn, puts on his straw hat, and heads to the barn to milk the cows. His hands, once accustomed to signing documents and shaking hands at political events, now work the land with surprising skill. Throughout the day, he tends to his cornfields and learns from local farmers, making sure to blend seamlessly into his new surroundings. However, when night falls and he returns to his wooden cabin, he cannot escape his true nature. He sits in his favorite chair, turns on his computer, and dives into old speeches of his on YouTube, chuckling nostalgically at his own iconic phrases and the applause he once received. Sometimes, in the solitude of his improvised study, he takes a notebook and scribbles ideas for a new business venture. He writes in large letters on the cover of a notebook. He dreams of turning his small farm into a dairy empire with his face, or that of a cow with a hairstyle similar to his, on every bottle of milk. But there is something he cannot suppress: his need for attention. During a local fair, he cannot resist. In the middle of a discussion on agricultural production, he climbs onto a makeshift stage and begins delivering a passionate speech about modernizing farming. He speaks with energy, with his signature style, using grandiose phrases that sound dangerously familiar. The townspeople listen with interest, but soon, murmurs begin to spread. Local journalists arrive, intrigued by the charismatic farmer who speaks with such confidence, with a cadence and tone that are eerily reminiscent of, well, Donald Trump. And then suspicions start to grow. Some countries lament his disappearance, while others claim that the news serves as proof that the United States is undergoing an internal crisis, a message that reinforces the narrative that the West is losing strength on the global stage. Meanwhile, Trump's family was facing its own drama. His business empire, which had already been under scrutiny due to multiple legal investigations, became the center of a battle of interests. His children, Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric, found themselves facing the difficult task of deciding how to handle both the businesses and the political movement their father had created. Some wanted to keep his political legacy alive, leading the MAGA movement, while others preferred to focus on saving the family businesses, many of which were in jeopardy due to accumulated debts and pending lawsuits. The media attention toward the family intensified dramatically, and every move they made was analyzed by both supporters and critics alike. In a remote place, a rumor about a farmer began circulating in neighboring towns, becoming a frequent topic in casual gatherings among friends. They whispered about how someone's acquaintance had heard an interesting theory. Aware that his face was one of the most recognizable images on the planet, Donald Trump made an extreme decision, undergoing a radical surgery to completely change his appearance. His new plan required absolute discretion, so he turned to an underground surgeon hidden somewhere in the dark corners of Eastern Europe, a doctor renowned in secret circles for transforming faces with near-surgical precision. After weeks of operations, recovery, and meticulous adjustments, Trump ceased to exist visually. In his place, Jonathan Blake was born, a sophisticated British businessman with European features and an unbreakable new identity. However, there was one thing that wasn't so easy to modify: his voice. His distinctive way of speaking, with dramatic pauses and peculiar emphases, remained a challenge. To fully embody his new identity, he spent hours practicing a forced British accent, rehearsing phrases in front of a mirror, and watching interviews of English aristocrats to mimic their cadence. Over time, his transformation became convincing, at least on the surface. With his new face and name, Jonathan Blake immersed himself in the world of high finance and gambling. He invested large sums in luxury casinos in Monaco, surrounding himself with magnates and high-stakes gamblers. He played poker with billionaires and scrupulous businessmen, and members of the global elite who never suspected that the refined man sitting across from them, with his elegant British accent, was actually the former president of the United States. His new life seemed perfect: anonymity, wealth, and power without the constraints of politics. But there was one thing he couldn't change, something innate to his very being: his insatiable need for recognition. During a private meeting with Russian investors, in the middle of a lavish lounge filled with cigar smoke and glasses of cognac, he couldn't resist. As they discussed investment strategies, his ego took over, and with a self-satisfied smile, he let slip: "Nobody understands business like I do. In fact, I was president once." At first, the room erupts in laughter. Everyone assumes it's just an extravagant joke. But as glances are exchanged and certain details begin to align, his gestures, his speaking style, his unusual insistence on certain topics, an unsettling doubt starts to grow among those present. And then, without him realizing it, someone begins to piece everything together. In the end, people told many stories, but Trump's family didn't seem worried, as if deep down, they knew that the idea of a president longing to be a farmer wasn't as crazy as it seemed. Even though he was gone, Trump had left a mark that continued to spark debate, divide opinions, and affect the country long after his disappearance. Despite the differing views, his impact was undeniable. Trump defined an era in politics, and his presence still stirred controversy. His legacy served as a reminder of how the words and actions of a leader can influence a society for years, even after they are no longer in spotlight. The absence of Donald Trump did not put an end to his influence. In many ways, his disappearance left a void that continued to fuel tensions and conflicts, both in the United States and around the world. For some, his absence was an opportunity to heal the wounds he had left behind. For others, it was a call to keep fighting for the ideas he represented. The country faced a significant challenge: to use his departure as a turning point toward unity, or to allow divisions to deepen further. His figure, alive or dead, would continue to shape the history of the United States. Could his departure open the door to reconciliation, or would it only intensify the political and social battles he helped expose? Years later, the world still wonders, where is Donald Trump? Some claim to have seen him selling tractors in a remote town in Iowa. Others insist that a mysterious magnate in Monaco has a business style that feels eerily familiar. There are even theories about an anonymous mastermind behind some of the most controversial viral campaigns on social media. But the truth remains hidden. Perhaps Trump achieved what always seemed impossible, leaving behind the noise and controversy to reinvent himself in the shadows. Or maybe, deep down, he is simply waiting for the perfect moment to reappear and shock the world once again. Could someone like Trump truly live in anonymity? Or would the desire for power and attention eventually bring him back? And if he returned, in what new version of himself will we find him?